Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Property and Investor Podcast. As you know, my name is Paul Lanfear. Before we get into the podcast, my inner lawyer needs to say nothing's the podcast, it's health, legal, financial advice, all of that good stuff, but you know that by now. Carol, a very warm welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's fabulous to be invited.
It's really exciting to have you here. So, Carol, as ever, tell us the origin story. So how did we get here? You're very well known in the space for being a genuine expert in the planning space, with decades of experience. But before we get into all of that, tell us tell us the origin story. Tell us how you got here.
Goodness. So I'm Carol Clarke now, but I haven't always been Carol Clarke. I was born Carol Mosby, and our family is actually from Norway. There's actually a town in Norway called Mosby. But I married a wonderful gentleman some 18 years ago. So I am Carol Clarke now. But I was born and bred in Blackpool and by the sea, and so have a huge love for the sea. Have wonderful parents, very lucky. Mum and dad still with us. Parents. My dad was an engineer, a mechanical engineer, and he built his own factory and built lots of other factories. And he had a small portfolio of buy-to-let properties as well in the Northwest. My mum was a tailor and a housekeeper. And so very much working class upbringing, fabulous parents. I have an older brother that's a year older than me, who is a fire commander, I think his title, but he's been in the fire service for many, many years. So yeah, being in Blackpool, I typical upbringing, went to school, did my A levels, very lucky in Blackpool, wonderful place to be brought up. Always something going on, and loads of job opportunities in the seasonal tourism sector. And I was very lucky from the age of 15 to 25. I worked at Pizza Hut and I got a job and worked my way up to management and was a manager at Pizza Hut. But I did that alongside studying through to my A levels. And when I finished my A levels, I thought, what am I going to do? But just typical, you've got A levels, you can go to university. Thought, what do I like doing? What's of interest? Had no real career aspirations at that point. And but I think being brought up in the seaside perhaps did influence me because I love the weather. And of course, at the seaside, you see such extremes of weather. And yeah, I love the environment. And I also took an interest in how towns evolved and how seaside towns evolved differently. So that led me to do a geography and business degree. And I did that up in Sunderland. I had fabulous 3 years up in Sunderland. After I did my degree, at the time, I thought I might want to be a weather girl, actually. Um, but unfortunately, the science behind the weather was perhaps a little bit too much for me, and I failed my meteorology module.
Hmm.
So that kind of put paid to that. But I had the name and everything. I was going to be my stage name was going to be Cindy Waves, and and it all worked out. Who knows? Anyway, maybe in a second life I might still do that. But yeah, so finished my degree and still didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I announced to my parents that I was going to go traveling. I was going to go and travel the world. And even though I was 21, they said, you're not going anywhere, young lady, on your own. So I was a very good daughter. And I said, okay, how about if I get a job working abroad? Would that be with an English company? Would that be okay? So they said, yeah, okay, that's fine. So I applied to be a holiday rep with 3 companies and I got all 3 jobs and I chose to go and work for First Choice. So I went and lived abroad for 2 years and lived in Turkey and Cyprus and had wonderful times, met amazing people again, saw lots of different places. But after 2 years, I was absolutely exhausted. It was a wonderful experience, but exhausting. And I came back and to Blackpool. And bizarrely, I was reading the Daily Mail one day, and in the Daily Mail, there was an article, and a lady had done a geography degree, and then she'd done a town planning master's. And that just struck a chord with me. And I thought maybe that's what I should do. So I applied to University of Manchester to do a town planning master's, and that's why I now live in Greater Manchester. So I came to do my master's, um, got my master's degree, got a job during, it was a 2 year master's, then got a job immediately, got a job in the summer with a property company, and they then offered me a job straight afterwards. That was a big corporate property company. And yeah, met my husband, stayed in Manchester. And for the last 23 years, I have been a chartered town planner, but spent around 15 years in corporate, big consultancies. I also work for a large, well, the largest landowner in Cheshire, as their head of planning, advising them on how to increase the value of their portfolio in land. And then when my children, I'm also a mum of two incredible boys. And when they were 8 and 4, I kind of got to a point where I was working a lot of hours and missing out. And so I just said to my husband, I think I have to resign, and set up my own business. And I had never had any aspirations to set up a planning consultancy. My husband's incredibly supportive. So yeah, that's what I did. And so I launched Bramall Town Planning 8 years ago. And crikey, yeah, it's just gone from strength to strength. It's a bit of a double-edged sword for me, I guess, because the planning system can be a little difficult.
Hmm.
And so, it's for that reason that I navigate my way through it for my clients to get them to their own goals. So ultimately, because the planning system can be difficult, and despite the tweaks and the changes that every government seems to try and make, it's still the same after 23 years. So, yeah, I just always try and take a very positive approach, because even somebody only this week said to me, Carol, I don't know how you do your job. So there we go. So that's where I'm at.
Do you know what, Carol? I mean, we've known each other for a bit of time, I would say. And do you
Yeah.
know, I have to say there is much in that that I had no idea of. So, for example, Cindy Waves, the weather girl. Like never in all of our conversations has ever come up. I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, there we go. So if there are any TV weather stations watching,
Yeah.
if you would like an apprentice, then please do get in touch. I'd love to give it a go.
I do now feel like that's like kind of a mission to establish is to try and connect you with a weather station and get you at least like, a cameo kind of walk-on role as Cindy Waves, the weather girl. That's so fascinating. And it's interesting. So you're a Viking as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. And do you ever get back to Norway?
Do you know what? Quite bizarrely, I've never visited the town of Mosby, and we really should go. But quite bizarrely, my husband, when I married him, his brother moved to Norway because he married a Norwegian. So
Mhm.
so we have been to Norway a few times,
Yeah.
visiting him, and I have a niece and nephew in Norway now as well. So, but I will go. It is a mission to go. Yeah.
I mean, it is. I would say it's my favorite country on the face of the planet. I love Norway. Spent a
Wow.
bit of time there. Um, the infrastructure is absolutely breathtaking. The people are friendly. It's really safe.
It is.
Um, I remember surfing. Like I was going surfing there. Had a guide, a female guide, and she parked, the 4x4 up at the beach, left the keys in ignition, said, "Right, come on, get your stuff, let's go." And I was just like, "Oh, do you need to lock the 4x, the truck?" And she was like, "Oh, no, no, no. and she left the keys in the ignition. She goes,
Oh,
nobody's going to, nobody's going to take your car. Nobody's going to steal your surfing gear. Whereas in the UK and various parts of Europe, that is definitely not the case. And they've done some really smart things with their natural resources as well. Apparently every Norwegian is a millionaire because they harness their natural gas. They created their sovereign wealth fund. I'm sure there is much. I'm sure there's
yes.
much. It also now explains why I've seen images of you in wetsuits. I didn't. I obviously have a great love of the sea, and in listening to you, you clearly have a love of the ocean and the environment as well.
Oh, absolutely. Do you know what? One of my favorite things to do is in the winter and is to walk down the South Promenade when it's high tide and the waves are crashing in. It's just I love it. Love it. You just get blown to pieces, and it's one of the most wonderful things to do just to clear your head. And just, I mean, the weather itself is just to see the atmosphere in motion and the tides, and yeah, it's a bizarre secret love.
I love it. It's not bizarre at all. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm gonna. One of the rules of the podcast is don't interrupt my guests, let them speak, and don't be scared of asking like the stupid question. So, stupid question number one, um, chartered town planner. So what does that mean? As
So
opposed to just being a planner, a planning consultant, for example.
yeah. So I guess it's an extra level of authority, of professionalism, in
Mhm.
that you have to get a planning degree in the first instance. Then you have to work for a minimum of 2 years, um, and then um, and then you apply to the Royal Town Planning Institute to meet, I think now it might be, I think there's 11 criteria, different criteria setting out your experience, your interpretation, your understanding of different aspects of planning. So yeah, and in actual fact, for a few years, I was an assessor for the Royal Town Planning Institute. So I was getting the submissions and saying yes or no to people, actually, which was an interesting role for a few years. Um,
And is that like an arduous process to go through that process?
Not particularly. It wasn't when I went through it. It has got stricter because it's to become a chartered town planner. You have to have strict codes of conduct in terms of professionalism, and all sort of bribery and all those kind of things. You don't have to be a chartered town planner. But I chose to go through the process and get the recognition ultimately.
Interesting. And it's interesting you mention bribery. I mean, you'd think that would be kind of, something that you could put to the side, but um, local authorities there are current investigations into local authorities, including planning departments, that relate to taking bribes in the north of England. Not going to go into more in detail of that, but it is alarming and eye-opening that that is still something which is very much in place. So obviously, it's a good thing that you've covered that. And then one of the themes of the podcast that just like has naturally arisen is this concept of the E-Myth book about the entrepreneurial seizure. What takes somebody from a nice, steady job where they're probably getting pension contributions given, put into their pension fund and all that. Listening to you, it was reaching like a stage where, you know, you wanted to spend a bit more time with your boys. So just to unpack that for us a little bit.
Goodness, absolutely. So I think yeah, I had a wonderful role. I was head of planning for a private estate looking after their 6,000 acres, 600 buildings. And a wonderful team of people I worked with. But yeah, I guess it kind of hit me at one point that I was working all day, um, leaving, home at sort of 6:30 a.m. and sometimes not getting home till 10 p.m. because I would quite often be at parish council meetings or at networking events or at dinners. And so that was, easily, 3 or 4 times a week. So yeah, I guess it just hit me that um I was a mum, and I consider myself a mum first and foremost. My boys are my absolute two miracles. And so yeah, it hit me that they were 8 and 4, they were growing up quickly. And whilst my employers have always, I've never missed a Christmas show or parents' evening or anything like that, always fabulous. I was still missing the evenings with them. And yeah, my husband also works full time in an architecture practice. And so, there was a lot of pressure on him when I wasn't around. So yeah, I literally just had to make the decision um, to set up my own planning consultancy. And because if I just went to work for somebody else, it could just be the same sort of thing.
Definitely.
So yeah.
And that makes complete sense. And kudos for you for being brave and doing that. I mean, my experience of corporate life is very similar. Like I actually worked for great firms, worked with great people as well, who, to this day I'm still in touch with and friends with and, and admire. But, leaving the home at 6:30 in the morning, getting back off and then corporate duties afterwards, so often getting back, kind of in the middle of the night. I remember my daughter telling me, like years and years and years after I'd kind of left corporate life, she said, I'm really glad that you stopped working there. Because I didn't see you in the morning and I only got that last kind of tiny bit with you before I went to bed. I tell you what, that really touched a spot when she said that. Yeah, definitely took a lot from that.
Yeah.
The planning system, it is so difficult. So my notes here says, why, Carol? So, we're like, I would say, despite all the things that are currently going on in the UK, which are clearly we need to resolve, we live in a, by any measure, a civilized country. We have the rule of law largely. But why is the planning system such a headache for people?
It's the $64,000 question. Yeah, I've looked at other countries and their systems, and yeah, I listened to a podcast about an interview on America only this week actually, and their zonal system. And I've often wished that we could have something more like that, because I mean, it could be that, we're an island. There's only so much land. Um, the planning system, in my view, has got it wrong for a long time. They are starting to rectify it and the approach. And when I say that, I mean, we all sit in traffic. And
Hmm.
one of the fundamental factors we do that is that we used to plan our cities. We used to put a town centre over here. We used to put offices over here, and we used to put housing over here. And we all got in our car and drove to our offices, then went shopping and drove to the town centres. And so now finally we are getting better in that we've got office developments and industrial parks close to residential. We've got town centres and city centres, a massive push on bringing more people living in town centres and city centres. So you've not got all this cross travel going on, which has gridlocked our roads for a long time. Um, I mean, there are stacks of other external factors, such as, crikey, whenever I'm sure anybody sits on the M6, or maybe you don't like me, look around and count the lorries. And, for far too long, all our materials and shipments coming in to the south from the Panama Canal because our northern ports couldn't accept them. Now Liverpool is obviously is now able to amend some, and so all the lorries serving deliveries in the north were just, they're gridlocking the M6. Whereas now at least we're able to get some in through Liverpool. So it's, takes some of that pressure off. But, our railway systems, we have a fabulous railway system, obviously, when it operates. And as part of our heritage, but we should be getting more of those deliveries onto the railway system to get off the roads. Because otherwise, yeah, we're just going to have to keep building more and more roads, and we are. But there is that balance that we need homes, so we need land for homes.
Mhm.
You know, we need to get people off the roads. We need to make it more attractive for people to travel via public transport. And we do need to, protect the landscape to a certain degree. There is an awful lot of green belt and it has its purposes. There's an awful lot of countryside and that has masses of purposes, and woodlands is an interest of mine as well. And
Mhm.
so um, as a result of that, and indeed, I think we're very lucky. Our nation has a lot of heritage in terms of listed buildings. Although I do say a lot as well that a lot of the schemes that I see and designs of new housing developments, and I try and encourage certain parties that who is actually designing conservation areas of the future, and those are things that I don't see. Um, but yet we put so much protection on listed buildings and on conservation areas. So why
Mhm.
aren't we designing um, schemes that are worthy? Now, design is such a subjective matter, and my husband trained as an architect, and so I'm sure lots of architects watching will have their own opinions. And that's also one of the key factors, I would say, that we do struggle with the planning system, which is why the zoning system in America, I think, works well in that if you want to develop a parcel of land and in America, it's zoned for two-story detached houses with, wood cladding, then that you can just go ahead and build that. You need to get, I forget what it's called. You need to get like building regulations, but they have certain criteria, whereas we have in part zones. So areas are zoned for residential, areas are zoned for shopping, and areas are zoned for mixed uses, shopping and residential. But we don't go to the detail of saying the design will be acceptable if you follow these steps, if you design to this. And that is what I see a lot of refusals on, is on design, because it can be very difficult to quantify. Um, it's so subjective. What I think is a good design is different to what a planning officer thinks or what an architect thinks, you see. So that's one difficulty. But despite all that, um, I absolutely encourage everybody who's in property to keep an open mind about the planning system,
Mhm.
because one, we need homes. We can't
Mhm.
stop building homes. Two, the planning system, yeah, despite the fact that they keep trying to tinker with it, it's not going to change drastically. It's here to stay. Embrace it and benefit from it, frankly. And so it is just about finding those routes through, for your project, for your objective. And there are absolutely routes through. People come to me with all sorts of properties and sites, and I will tell them if it's just no chance, but I will
Mhm.
always try and find an opportunity. Um, but because yeah, there are stacks of them out there.
Mhm. It's fascinating when you deal with somebody like you who is genuinely sort of has mastery over what they do. And there's a temptation, I think, in certain parts of the property space for really understandable reasons for, for people to do it all themselves. And people do all kinds of aspects of their property businesses themselves, including planning. and they're pulling their hair out. They're unbelievably frustrated with the system. And I often think to people, well, people ask me, well, do I do my own legal work? I'd never do my own legal work. In the same way, I wouldn't do my own dentistry. Because like it just doesn't make any sense. What I've noticed is that people who have your level of experience, they it's not just kind of they understand the nuts and bolts of the planning regulations, but they also know how well the system works and where there can be a bit of good give and take and a bit of negotiation. Um, do you find that in your daily practice? I mean, are you able to have like conversations that can help things progress?
Oh goodness, absolutely. Yes. And I think if anybody used to work with a town planner, with a planning consultant, then yeah, that's one of the key areas that they should be bringing value. Um, I do feel for planning officers in a lot of councils though. They're doing a tough job as well. And so I have generally 35 applications on to go, 35 projects, and that's a lot
Mhm.
for me to handle. But I know a lot of planning officers are dealing with 80, 90, 100 applications each.
Yeah.
And so, and similarly, the process in a council is you will work with a planning officer and you will hopefully get them to a point where they will recommend approval. Um, but they have to then get a second opinion from their line manager, and their line manager can disagree. Or indeed, if, for example, it's a bigger scheme, or if, for example, it's an application that's generated lots of objections, it may get called into planning committee. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is that planning is political. First and
Right.
foremost, it is political. And so, and I've been before planning committees many a times, and they're ward councillors and they're sat round a table because they've been elected by the voters. So they're
Mhm.
representing the voters, as well as the hopefully the aspirations of the borough. But yeah, I mean, then I always say you're in the hands of the gods. I've I've seen some silly decisions at planning committee, unfortunately. But yeah, it's we have to keep going. Yeah, and yeah, it is very much find those routes through the system, and they are there. But I get a lot of people coming to me with refusals, saying, Carol, can you appeal this? And they might have just worked with their architects. And quite often people come to me saying, Carol, can you help me with this? And actually, sometimes I'll say to them, you don't need me. Actually, you just need a good architect. This should be straightforward because I appreciate I've just started investing myself, and I understand the process of purchase, refurb, and the costs and the processes. And sometimes I totally understand that not all schemes can stand the cost of an architect plus a town planner. So
Mhm.
so many times, I'll just say to the architects, look, if you have any queries, just give me a call. Because not every scheme has the budget for a town planner as well. But my business, when I set it up, I very specifically didn't want to recruit. And so I do find I do have to refuse a lot of work as well because I just don't have capacity. But then it frustrates me when I get lots of people coming to me and I'm just like, oh, if only you'd spoken to me first. But I can't do everything. And that's why I'm writing Planning Permission Unlocked, which um I have a mock-up of the
Nice, very
book,
nice.
and to this is my inspiration to finish the draft. Um, but yeah, it's hopefully it'll help a lot of people prevent them making silly mistakes.
Yeah.
And it includes very much, yes, lots of facts, but also the wisdom, obviously, of my 20 plus years being at the front of the system.
And look, if it stops people pulling their hair out, that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? So you've alluded, obviously, you've alluded to your business, but also the fact that you're an investor as well. So you're actively involved in that respect, and of course, you are in the process of writing your book, and you're doing some rather very exciting things as well. So let's take a little bit of a deep dive into your current ecosystem. So talk us through all these different sort of facets to your working life.
Oh my goodness. So, well, for many years, people kept saying to me, Carol, why don't you invest yourself? And I guess as a busy mum working, the focus was, got to pay the mortgage. And so, but then it did strike me. And because my dad had a small portfolio, albeit I think growing up, that he wasn't really into property, and so I perhaps had some negative connotations as a result of that. But yeah, people kept saying to me, Carol, why aren't you doing this yourself? And obviously, a lot of the focus of my clients is the planning game. You actually, we're all in business at the end of the day. So as a property investor or developer, um, you want to buy a building and increase its value. And the planning system helps with one aspect of that if you're changing the use to a higher value use, etc. So I never really had any aspirations to grow, to just have buy-to-lets, but I've got a couple of buy-to-lets.
Mhm.
Now I came to property investing very late, so just got those in the last couple of years. And but then a contact of mine who is now a business partner approached me, and she has a portfolio and fancied doing something a bit more interesting, and so we joined forces. Um, to look at planning gain options to buy buildings, commercial buildings or land, and get planning permission and either deliver them or ultimately flip the buildings on as a result of the
Mhm.
paper exercise of getting planning permission. And so, yeah, goodness, probably 2 years ago now, we bought a care home, a 24-bed care home, and I got planning permission for 9 flats. And yeah, we did exactly that. We flipped it on, and there was, between the price that we bought it and the price we sold it at, there was a 18% increase in value just by getting planning permission. We hadn't put a spade in the ground. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, everybody knows, with regards to you've got your legals and all the rest of it, everything that comes off it. But yeah, a while ago, a surveyor told me that in general, if you get a full planning permission and you are obviously going to a new use that is a higher value, you can look at a 15 to 20% increase, and that's the planning gain. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, I'm not a financial advisor or indeed a surveyor. I'm AssocRiCs, but I'm not a chartered surveyor. But so you'll have to get your own advice on that for your individual building or property. But the example of our care home fit neatly within that. That's what we did. So that is very much an interest. We were out this week in Greater Manchester looking at a fabulous multi-unit building that's got planning gain opportunities for an extra building. So yeah, there's there's a lot of interesting projects out there. I guess for me, it's the time when I'm juggling the day job, the day business, writing my book, being a mum.
So, I mean, that takes me on to a thought that I've had, which is given your experience as a town planner, given your own business that you have, but also with your entrepreneurial spirit that you have in terms of your own investments and the other things that you're doing. Is there like a trade idea that you could give us? Is there an opportunity that you see in the marketplace that is probably underexplored by investors?
In terms of land planning and property, I think it's difficult when we look at different property strategies, and I think it's difficult um, to not want to follow the masses if you see something that's working. But what I would always say is to keep in mind actually what's of course we want to look at what's new, what's coming, where's the economic environment going, where's the environment going, where's the politics going. But I think it is also important to look at, well, actually, what has constantly worked and what will always be the same. And I would encourage people that we will always need houses. That is going to be a persistent human need. And in fact, um, one of the books that I'm rereading at the moment is Same as Ever by Morgan Housel, which is a super
Oh,
book actually. And it's a great book as well because it's split into 23 stories, and it looks at the economy, it looks at history, and it kind of it's similar to that thought concept really. So yeah, if anybody wants a book recommendation, that's a good one. It's good because you can just read one chapter and it's just one story as well. But yeah, I would encourage people to look at what will we always need, and we will always need homes. That's one thing. Um, the other area that I see an opportunity in at the moment, and I'm doing a few of them, is apart hotels. And I see that as an opportunity, one, because now it was the Conservative government that tabled the potential use class for serviced accommodations. We obviously, holiday lets, so converting a flat into a holiday let or converting a house into a holiday. At the moment, we operate under, in general, a C3, unless there is a material change in the use. And so, um, however, obviously, we had a change in government, and the new government has not brought in that use class, and that's good and bad. Wales has the use class; they did bring it in, but the government obviously brought in the licensing requirements, which I see as a good aspect in terms of those holiday lets. However, I think there is a good opportunity to convert redundant town centre buildings where there is perhaps a tourism um, market into apart hotels. Because if you just had if you had a commercial building on the ground floor and you just had a flat above and you converted that flat into an Airbnb short let, then you're just getting one income. Whereas now what I'm doing, I'm submitting planning applications for the conversion of entire buildings, sometimes with a small office commercial use on the ground floor. But we're getting 18 square meter full, fully kitted out bedroom, ensuite, and kitchen. And they are apart hotels. So, so they're completely and so you're getting seven, eight, nine rents from the same building.
mhm.
So I see that as an interesting opportunity. For the reuse of these commercial buildings as well, where yeah, where there's demand ultimately. They have to be, so as a hotel use, it has to be in a town centre though. So otherwise we have to do something called a sequential assessment to justify why a hotel outside of the town centre is acceptable. So if that is of interest to anybody, then do look for properties within town centre boundaries. In the council's development plan. And so, yeah, I see that as one opportunity.
That sounds like a fantastic opportunity. And we drove past a building the other day that looked really suitable for that, and it had been, fenced off and been fenced off for some time. And you always wonder, like, what is going on with that building? Like, why? It's such a tragedy, isn't it? Well, I feel it's a tragedy when you look at a building and it's just falling to pieces and it's got stuck somewhere. It's got stuck in the planning system, or there's, been an insolvency and that's having to work itself out, or, the death of an owner in a more complicated situation like that. And you wonder what the story is, and it's such a waste to see these buildings empty, particularly if you think about the housing crisis that we have. Like every single building that could be occupied should really have it an opportunity to be brought back into service. That's fascinating, really fascinating. So thank you very much for those. Um, I mean, and that would particularly make sense in our coastal resorts as well, because many of our coastal resorts have fallen onto very quite difficult times. I mean, we've got a handful that have reinvented themselves and are clearly flourishing, but the majority of our coastal towns are still struggling. And you get past, one or two streets, and then you do see very high levels of poverty. You see lots of empty buildings, and there's fantastic charities. For example, in Scarborough, we have the Wave Project who are doing great work on that. But that's excellent. That's really, really good.
Yeah, in coastal towns, just if anybody is looking in coastal towns, they often have areas designated. So whilst I've said, hotels and apart hotels, you need to be looking in town centres for them to be policy compliant. In coastal towns, they also have areas designated for holiday accommodation. So if you're in that area as well, then an apart hotel is likely to work in that area as well.
Very good. Excellent. Um, so tell us a life lesson, Carol.
Life lesson. Oh my goodness. I think one of my biggest life lesson was, I think, when I was 12. I was told of a medical condition that basically the doctor said to me, as a result, you're highly unlikely to ever be able to carry and give birth and have children. So, and I accepted that. And I think that's probably why I was kind of focused on studying and doing well. I thought, well, if I can't have children, I'll have a career. If I can't be a mum, I'll have a career. But yeah, lo and behold, yeah, I think my life lesson is the human body is just incredible.
Mhm.
And I defied those doctors not once but twice. So yeah, I guess don't necessarily believe everything you're told. And yeah, I truly believe the human body is incredible. What it can do and regenerate. Yeah,
It is unbelievable. I mean, that is amazing, and it explains, your commitment to being a mum, and the fact that you're so driven by your boys. And isn't Mother Nature remarkable? I mean, it's extraordinary. Left to, the human body is incredible. There's no doubt about it. It's amazing.
absolutely.
Very good. Excellent. Love the life lesson. So, bringing things towards a bit of a conclusion then. So, um, we've had the pleasure of kind of working together for well, about a year or so now. You've been to my breakfast, you've been to my inner circle, you've been up a mountain with me on the adventure retreat. So for anybody thinking about dipping their toes in the water, trying any of those things out, what kind of things what's been your experience like, and what would you say to somebody?
I think the main thing I would say is that you have this incredible ability of one, making people feel welcome, that they're in the right place. And two, you have this incredible ability of just bringing incredible people of all backgrounds and businesses together. And that has absolutely been, I don't know how you on the inner circle, um, how you decide what 10 masterminders you're going to work with that year. But this year has been wonderful because of just a wonderful bunch of people that you've brought together that bounced off and progressed businesses and personal aspirations together. So that's something that really stuck out. And similarly, oh my goodness, the adventure retreat in the end of August, beginning of September that you do in the Lake District. What a fantastic 3 days. If you want to challenge, if you want to push yourself, um, And if you know what, if you just want a little bit of peace from the day to day of life, of business, of being a parent, then that's what I took so much away from that weekend, and it was jam packed. It was great.
And well, thank you very much for saying that. And like, you really crushed it on the mountain, because obviously, there's some people there who that's their environment. They're always in the mountain. Obviously, we have the mountain guides. Um, but you absolutely crushed the mountain. I remember us getting to the top of it. I remember putting my kind of arm around your shoulder and just saying to you like that. That was very impressive. Very.
It was hard. It was yeah, I was pleased with myself. I because I'm 5 foot nothing and little legs trying to climb those. Yeah, that was but the mountain guys were brilliant, and I got one of their sticks, and that was a real help. So thank you.
And you've really been on this journey as well this year, in terms of a real transformation in terms of your health, your well-being. And I think everybody who's been around you has witnessed that and taken a lot of inspiration. I think it's made a lot of us think about that. What was the inspiration? What was the catalyst for what has been this remarkable transformation that you've done in the time that we've known each other?
Oh goodness, I think it's just over the years, you kind of let yourself go, put on a few kilos here, there, and it adds up. And I just got to a point whereby I needed to focus on me. You work in a one, two, three businesses. It's hard to focus on you and being a mum, focusing on my boys. So I took the decision this year that it it would just keep escalating. And so, yeah, I've lost 20 kilos in 7, 8 months and feel incredible for it. And yeah, now I've got a weight jacket. I'm walking with a weight jacket, 12,000 steps a day. My dog's exhausted. So, mind you, he was at the vets this week and he's been told he has to lose 2 kilos actually as
You
well.
you have to help him with that.
So yeah, so that has been brilliant, but more so, and the inner circle, because I set that as a personal goal for the year to achieve, and the inner circle support has been fantastic with that. And yeah, ultimately it's a stepping stone to longevity is the way I see it, and it's certainly helped my confidence. I'm very lucky I get asked to speak at events quite a lot. And yeah, when you're standing on stages, big or small, if you're not comfortable in your own skin, then I hope it wouldn't affect my performance, but it's certainly given me more confidence. And yeah, my goals for next year are to do a lot more speaking on bigger stages. And because I love sharing knowledge and sharing value, and just uh, if I can stop somebody making a mistake in the planning system, then that's my job done. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I have had a few years ago. I had time to kind of work one-on-one with Daniel Priestley and speak to Daniel Priestley. And at the time, he was using this terminology. He was saying, you need to treat yourself as a performance athlete. No doubt it appears in one of his brilliant books. Um, you are the epitome of that. So, it's really fascinating. A friend of mine recently did a Facebook post that a lot of people engaged with, which is like, what is going on with the world? Like, why is everybody so flaky? Why don't people turn up on time? Why aren't they replying to emails? And he was doing it out of exasperation. And a lot of people that I know chimed in, like, mate, I'm with you. Like, what is going on? You're the absolute opposite of that. You're always on time. You're always prepared. You're always, as far as the outside world can tell, in a great mood. Um, you attend events which are very challenging for you to attend. You travel halfway across the country, you rock up, you're in brilliant form, and then you travel halfway across the country again. So I just want to acknowledge that. It's been a great privilege working with you, and to witnessed like what a true high performance athlete you are. It is extraordinary.
Oh,
And absolute kudos to you. I
oh.
don't know how you do it.
Well, do you know what? I probably also put it down to vitamin D every day as
Okay.
well. That keeps me going.
Well, that's interesting. So yeah, uh, give us a couple of health things. So vitamin D, I'm a big fan of vitamin D. Any other health things we
Oh,
can mention?
you know, I mean, you know, it's a personal thing, but for me, when I set up my business, it was very much to work from home. I had no inclination to have an office, and so I work from the home office. And
Mhm.
if you if you don't approach it in a certain way, your working day, you can sit on your bum for 10 hours a day. And
Yeah.
so I consciously take the dog out once or twice, or if I don't take the dog out, then I walk. And so I set myself walking targets. And so it can be things like I've got to do 8,000 steps before 8 a.m. or just 12,000 steps a day. And I love my Fitbit that tracks it on the app, and it's a little bit of a game to me, and that keeps me going. Um, and yeah, I think my morning routine is important to me. I'm up early, and that's where I get my best work done. Um, so come sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, the brain cells are tired. So yeah, that it's finding what works for you. I'm a big fan of habit stacking as well. So
Mhm.
I set myself a little target to get 3 liters of water a day. Doesn't always happen. But when I go on my walk, I take my 750 water bottle. And even if I've done my 8,000 steps before 8 a.m., if I've not finished that water, I'm not allowed to come home. So it's just, so I'm getting a walk, the dog's getting the walk, and I'm getting my first 750 of water in for the day. So it's just, and I'm listening to something inspirational, a
Mhm.
podcast or a book. So it's just utilizing my time as best as I can. Yeah.
Amazing. That dog of yours is going to be really healthy, really fit. I have no worries about that dog of yours. So, as we move to a bit of a conclusion, talk us now about what you're optimized going forwards for. I know you've got a book, you've been doing some really interesting stuff around AI. So tell us a little bit about all of that.
Oh goodness. So thank you. Yes. So you know, I think we should all embrace AI.
Mhm.
Um, whatever roles. And yeah, a few people have come to me actually because yes, AI will answer some of your planning questions, and I use it myself and I test it, and it's given me some wrong answers. And because my aspiration has never been to recruit planners and to grow the consultancy, um, but I turn a lot of work down and people come to me with mistakes. So I want to be able to help more and more people. And so, working with a software developer, I have devised ascarol.ai. And
Mhm.
so I would encourage anybody who is interested in permitted development rights, the easiest routes through the planning system, and increasing the value of their land or property using the planning system to go to ascarol.ai.
Mhm.
This is at the moment, it is a waiting list that we are asking simply for interest because um, if there is sufficient interest, then we have a beta initial platform created whereby you can, two options. One, paste in a Rightmove link of a property that you're interested in buying, tell it that you want to extend it. You will tell AskCarol.ai whether you want to change the use, and it will then tell you, because it is linked to the correct legislation, and my wisdom over 20 years has been inputted into it. It will tell you whether that building has got permitted development rights and what the next steps are. Um, for instance, somebody phoned me up. They were looking at an auction property. It was 12 o'clock. The auction hammer was going to go down at 5 o'clock. They needed me to advise them, and I can't do it that quickly. So if it, for scenarios like that, it will be able to give you quick answers. It will also be able to, if you know your strategy is offices, or you know your strategy is conversion of pubs, you can use that use class and it will and tell it what you want to do. And it's similarly, it will give you advice. So for example, though, a pub is sui generis use. It does not have any permitted development rights. But I do not want to build something that says computer says no. So
Mhm.
instead, it will then give you a list of 4 questions that you need to ask the agent that is marketing that pub. And that
Mhm.
will then give you the knowledge as to whether you've got a chance of getting planning permission or not. So, yeah, it's a tool that I hope will be useful to small, medium developers, even estate agents, commercial agents, and architects dealing in the permitted development rights space.
Cool. Right. Well, I'm going to put the link below. I'll obviously put the link to your website as well. And
Thank
I would
you.
highly urge people to go and have a look around. And then if it looks of interest, do join the waiting list. Quite a fun thing happens when you join the waiting list. I won't give that away. It's a good little feature. Your software developer, yeah, fair play to them. That's quite an entertaining thing that happens. So definitely subscribe to that. And then obviously you've got the book coming and some other things on in the pipeline as well, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. So I created Planning Pro brand, Planning Pro by Carol J. Clarke. And so I have a YouTube channel that has a few videos on it. At the moment, I'll be uploading an awful lot more to help people with the niggling questions of the planning system. Um, and tied to that is several courses, commercial conversion course, on plot development. How do you know if that bungalow you've seen with a big parcel of land, if you can put another house on it? So those are 2 key courses that will be coming soon under the Planning Pro brand next year.
Amazing. And when do we get to read the book?
Hopefully March. That's my target for publication. Get it
Okay, there's a
written
bit
by
of
the end of the
accountability there,
year.
Carol.
Send it off and get all the spelling mistakes corrected.
Yeah, very good.
Thank
Well,
you.
look, Carol, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another property and investor podcast. Please do seek out Carol. As you can see, she's a fabulous human being and a real master of her craft as well. If you have enjoyed the podcast, which I really hope you have, please subscribe to the podcast. You wouldn't believe the difference that makes on the platforms. And if you could like, comment, share it with a friend, that would be very much appreciated. Really appreciate you listening. Take care, and we will speak very soon. Bye bye.